by it, you will note that I was never, not a single time, confident about this election, not ever. And never did I say, oh, this is in the bag. Never. I never give an indication and never give an inkling. I always knew that this was going to be a tough race. And I knew it was going to be a tough race because it was their A-team. Berkowitz has Begic's advisors. He's got his campaign managers. He's got all of his messaging people. He's got all the people in the media. He had all the A-team left-wing people. And who are we up against? Our C-team. We didn't have the best. And I know for a fact Matt Larkin wasn't involved. Now, I'll tell you right now, I begged campaign to get Matt Larkin involved. Let me tell you how different this would have turned out had Amy Dembowski come out and said what I think Matt Larkin would have told her to say, and I'm going to put myself in Matt Larkin's shoes if I may. You're listening to Glen Biegel here, by the way, on KOAN, KVNT, and it is the post-election post-mortem triage. We're trying to patch everybody together, help them understand. There's one reason, by the way, why Amy lost. Not enough people listen to this show. You know who they are listening to? Dave Steeran. You know he endorsed for mayor? You may not know this, Bonnie. He endorsed Emperor Palpatine. Yeah, he's a real serious guy. You know, I mean, after all, Berkowitz and Dembowski are like the same person. I mean, why even choose between them, right? No, he wasn't willing when the chips came down, right? When the chips came down, his station actually attacks Amy Dembowski, and then when the chips come down, he's not willing to expend any effort to support a conservative. That is telling in this election. That is eye-opening. He makes a joke of it. This wasn't a joke of an election. It was a very hard one to win, which is how you know when a person is truly conservative. When it's very difficult to win, that's how you know. And I realized that maybe it's foolish. You know, maybe endorsing Emperor Palpatine was just how we should have taken this election. After all, does it really matter? Does it really matter who we argue for or against? Oh, what's $100 million per year in new taxes, which is the difference between Mayor Begich and Mayor Sullivan? What's the difference in $100 million? Maybe $1,000 or $1,500 per family, per household? Is that really going to hurt you, $1,000 or $1,500? Yeah, kind of. Kind of that will, actually. That's kind of a big deal for my family. Maybe it's not for yours. No, this was a very eye-opening and very revealing election. But let me tell you, when I knew that this was going to be a tough one to win, and I think I'm going to put myself in the place, and I realize that this is extremely unfair of Matt Larkin. When the first person came out and said Amy is going to veto any homosexual ordinance, I believe Matt Larkin would have told Amy Dembowski, take control of your message. Is that your message? Is that what you want to run on? Is that all you want people to hear? You can't win with it, by the way. Go out and take control of your message. And what Amy would have done is gone out and said, I realize that there are people who support me who do not understand what my message is. My message is about smart, sensible, limited government, and a safe city. That's my message. Anybody who tries to take over my message, they don't speak for me. I speak for me. My campaign speaks for me. That's my message. And I will fight every day that I'm mayor to make sure that the city is safe, that we have proper and appropriate well and efficiently. That is my promise to you. Anybody who tries to take that message away from me is speaking on their own behalf, and they do not speak for me. Now, that's what a professional does for you when they help run your campaign. I'm not savaging anybody. Look, I've been in the middle of these campaigns, and I have buggered them up. I'm not that good at it. I'm just telling you what I think in this one instance. I think Matt Larkin probably would have done. I told the campaign early on, you do not have a chance. I wasn't even going to get involved in the campaign. That's how little of a chance I thought they had. But, in the end, you have to get involved. You have to be true to who you are. And if you think Berkowitz and Demboski are supported by the same people, do you think Berkowitz won't harm, materially destroy the legacy of a great mayor, Mayor Dan Sullivan? You think Demboski won't continue 99.9% of the policies of Mayor Dan Sullivan and the smart and wise guidance of government that he has given us? You have to get involved. This is what life is all about. So I've got lots of comments about it. We're in the triage part of the election. It did not turn out well. It was never probably going to turn out well. The media did its job very well, and the Demboski campaign was overwhelmed by supporters and opponents who helped paint her campaign into a very small, slight corner, garnering 41% of the vote. In an election where the turnout was actually pretty good, it'll be over 30%. I don't even know that that's a huge turnout for a runoff election. That's a big deal. A lot of people went and voted. I don't think there's any number of people having had, even if we had 100% of the people vote. What they find is, by the way, after you get to a certain percentage, the rest of the city usually mirrors what the initial voters actually did. So I don't think any of that stuff counts, but I will give my recital here of Dan Coffey and his position in this, and one of the parts of the campaign where I really thought there was a mistake that was made. And I got the sense that the campaign was having some difficulty understanding who their friends were, understanding who their enemies were, and what the purpose of a campaign really is. The Glen Biegel Show here on KOEN and KVNT. I'd love to hear from you. 569-1080. 569-1080. If you're out in the Valley, 357-5868. We'll be talking about the budget. We'll be talking about the university system. The Marijuana Control Board is now in place. And bears. All coming up. The Glen Biegel Show. Stay tuned. Yeah. 15 minutes after the hour, the Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN and KVNT. What are your thoughts on this election? Where do you think we're headed next? I have thoughts on Dan Coffey, and I see a very strong tie, by the way, between the presidential mix of voters and the Anchorage mix of voters. So I'm going to go through a couple of presidential polls and kind of make some parallels between the difficulty, if you think into the future just a little ways, where you have all these people positioning themselves and seeing different things in different candidates, and the difficulty that we have here in the city of Anchorage, sort of bringing together and sewing together this very unmerry band of rebels. Whereas it's getting its engines ready to go to melt down your property taxes, and here this merry little band of rebels is doing the training session, looking like fools. Lots to talk about. Love to hear from you. 569-1083, 575-5868. Our sponsor for this hour of the program is Because My Teeth Are Beautiful, Dr. Dan Kiley and his team. I went over there just yesterday on my birthday. Did you know it was my birthday yesterday? Yes.
Glenn, I was going to remember that.
I turned an unfortunate 47 years old.
Glenn,
do I look 47?
Why did it have to be election day when my mind is gone?
You were busy. You are one of the most busy and diligent members out there fighting on the side of good and righteousness and justice and peace and all that kind of stuff. I don't mind. Look, birthdays, do people not know this? After you're 18, birthdays don't matter. Maybe they do when
unless
you're
the baby of the family.
Oh, is that what it is? I was number 5.
I let people count down to my birthday, then I let everybody know it's my birthday. So you and I are very different.
Are you kidding me? All right, that's just sad. Can we have a moment of silence, of sadness for Bonnie here for actually counting down her own birthday? I mean, we are, after all, adults here, and our birthdays don't much matter. They come, they go faster and faster and faster every year. But anyway, I was at the doctor's office. I was actually at the dentist's office on my birthday, and they were cleaning my teeth, and it was a joyous and wonderful occasion. She gave me the most wonderful compliment. My dental hygienist said, "You have great gums." Now, see, that is not normally something either A, people would notice, or B, you would really want to hear from anybody, but I do want to hear that. So I'm proud of my great gums. There they are. See that? I should actually do my entire show just like this. I'm going to do my whole show with my great gums. Now, give them a call. A conservative dentist, the one person everyone needs in their life, 562-9209, centrally located, 4050 Lake Otis Parkway. A great place and wonderful staff he has there. To the phones. Love to hear from you. I want to hear what you think of this, or if you have a question about it, how this all turns out in the end. I think there are lots and lots of takeaways. I've written them on my Facebook page. Bonnie, if it hasn't been posted to Glen Biegel Show Facebook page, make sure they're all there. And some very in-depth conversations, by the way, that are going on. 569-1080, 357-5868. Todd, welcome to the Glen Biegel Show. Nice to talk to you.
Hey, great gums and great hair. So.
How do you like that? Yeah, see, I didn't ask her my question. How old does my hair look? That's really what I want to know. It look like it's 29, 30.
Fabulous.
See, there you go. That's all you got to do.
You have gums and hair for radio.
Oh man, this is getting bad.
I'm really glad. I know this doesn't help you guys out, but I'm really glad that I moved to Willow.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to figure out is what percentage of the people who voted for Mayor-elect Berkowitz, boy, that's hard to say, actually understands that they're voting for higher taxes versus what percentage thinks that they voted for Santa Claus.
Or both.
I'm trying to figure out.
We're going to get lower taxes, and Santa Claus is going to show up every single day, and he's going to put lights above the bike paths and all kinds of great things.
Right. As a high school economics teacher, that's the question I ask myself all the time is, as I teach, about the role of government and in the economy, it matters to me whether someone who likes big government or doesn't like big government. What I want people to understand is that if you like a larger government, that means you also want less personal freedom.
Yeah.
And
You want the government to start making decisions for everyone because that's what they do. And you believe that that level of fairness is an offset, what you quote call fairness. It doesn't often turn out to be very fair. If you're in a protected class or one of the favored class from the left, you might make out, you're a union person, one of the 7% of people who are in that class. But for the rest of us, all we get out of the deal is higher taxes and less freedom.
Right. So, I mean, I guess if the majority of the population wants bigger government and wants more taxes and wants less personal freedom, and they vote based on that, then I guess you get exactly what you wanted. But I just wonder, what
Todd,
what
I'd be willing to bet you that a quarter of the people who voted against Jerry Prevost, and what they saw was, and it wasn't true at all, as far as I understand. Amy Demboski doesn't go to church all that often. She's not the great Christian leader. She's not. She never actually set herself up as that. But I would guess about 25% of the electorate voted specifically on that because they were worried that there was going to be some kind of a church revolution running the government.
Right. So that's the Jeff Lansfield wing.
I don't think it's just the Jeff Lansfield wing. I think that there are, if you weren't tuning into this, and you heard people claiming Ethan Berkowitz wanted to marry his own son, which he actually argued for, but you didn't hear the audio. But you said, that's just weird. I mean, I don't believe that for a second. I don't think Ethan Berkowitz believes in incest because they're thinking about a different kind of incest, a different form of incest. But that's my guess. Is there was just like a very negative reaction to that.
Yeah. Well, most of the Hal Crow voters had to go to Berkowitz.
Oh, yeah.
And at least half of the coffee voters had to go to Berkowitz.
You mean Demboski in order for?
I mean, in order for this spread to occur, half of coffee's voters had to vote for Ethan, and most of Hal Crow's. Right?
Well, there was a whole bunch of new voters who showed up. We had a 25% vote before, and this time we had over a 30% vote of the people will actually have voted. So more people voted in the runoff than voted in the primary.
Right. But not enough to completely, I mean, there had to be some people who voted for Hal Crow and coffee. A pretty big percentage of them vote for Ethan.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I mean, look, Dan Coffey was very down on Amy, and you can understand. I'm actually going to talk about that here coming up. But and Hal Crow endorsed Berkowitz, so I don't know why. Mike Dingman came out very early and said he was supportive of Ethan. So I'm not surprised. And the real question is what's the long-term implications for this? Does this mean, Todd, the horror story for you and me is, does this mean, or the horror scenario, I'm not saying this is the story, but the horror scenario is there a majority of people who think government is the answer to any problem? Yeah,
well, that's the horror story for you because you live in Anchorage.
And I have lots of children.
And you have lots of children. Unfortunately, I do. And I guess as a public school employee, I'm actually better off for probably what happened financially, even though I'm very disappointed in the outcome. But.
Sure. And as I recall, over 10 or 11 years, there was a 70 to 80% raise for teachers. And, so
we're doing fine.
Yeah, I think so. And you had that pretty good retirement plan and fairly decent benefits package. All right. Yeah, well, Todd, right. We'll work this through. We'll reason this through here together. Okay.
Yeah, we've survived 6 years of President Obama, so we can do this too.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks. We survived 6 years of Mayor Begich as well, and then Senator Begich. Should Dan Coffey have endorsed Amy? Why in the world would he have done that? The worst part of the campaign was a flyer that came out where there was a claim that Dan Coffey, this is from Amy's campaign, that Dan Coffey actually bought people's votes on the assembly. It's illegal. He didn't do it, so it wasn't true. He couldn't have endorsed her at that point. Do people not understand this? I mean, I'm looking at my Facebook page. Then I posted something. Look, I think deeply about these things, and I think it's very important for us to try and figure out what happened in this election. What is the path forward? How do we all work together? Those are big questions. Those are hard questions. But then somebody comes out and starts saying, well, Dan Coffey should have endorsed Amy. What was he thinking? He couldn't have endorsed her. You understand that if you claim somebody is a criminal and then you get their endorsement, you've been endorsed by somebody who you said was a criminal. Why would Dan Coffey ever have endorsed her? He didn't want to put himself through any more pain. A. B, are you telling me that in the realm of politics, for the good of the order, after somebody slanders you, you're not going to say, you're on your own. And by the way, I don't hold a very high opinion of you. I am not interested in you. Whatever it is you may say you believe, what you did to me was wrong. And so I can't endorse you. I'm not interested in endorsing you. Why do people think it's going to turn? This is the darkest part of this election. And it may have lasting, damaging effects on a great candidate. I don't think she thought of this, by the way. I don't think she was responsible for this. And I think this was the biggest tragedy. And I think it was a reason why a lot of people who could have voted for Amy saw this attack on Dan Coffey and thought, well, how can you claim something so awful? And if you're going to claim it about somebody who we think, oh, look, he may not be your cup of tea or whatever, but he's still been around town. He owns the Aces. He's a lawyer. He's a man in good standing. What are we to think of you if this is what you think of him? So many things needed to be changed in the Dombosky campaign. Was this an election? The deepest question of all is this. And it's very simple. Is there a majority of people in Anchorage who think government is the answer to everything? Oh, I've got a problem with feeding people. Oh, well, the government will take care of that. I got a problem with housing people. Oh, well, the government will take care of that. I got a problem with drug users. Oh, the government will take care of that. Well, the guy who thinks that just got elected. But I don't for a second think that that's what the majority of people in Anchorage believe. So, no, this was a pendulum election. We just had 6 years of conservative governance in our town. And it was an A team versus a C team play. It was a very, very difficult election to win to start with. Don't think that it wasn't. And Amy was a fine candidate as far as I'm concerned. But she had to do everything right. She had to build all the right teams. She had to say all the right things. She had to have all the right positions. And that's just very, very difficult to do as a first time running for a big office. You're listening to The Glen Biegel Show, KOAN, KVNT. Stay tuned. 25 minutes before the hour, Glen Biegel here on KOAN and KVNT. What are you up to? Happy Wednesday, everybody. The post-election review of Anchorage politics. I don't think this means what Mudflats wants this to mean. Do you think this means what Mudflats wants this to mean, Bonnie?
No.
I don't think so. No. They want it to mean that no conservative can ever attempt to win here in Anchorage, but I do think it's going to have to be the right conservative with a very clear and strong message. And somebody who's not going to be hijacked by a bunch of their supporters who want to come out and say whatever it is that they want to say. There are a lot of things that came clear in this, and I'm going through some of those here on the show today. The first thing I want people to realize is the handling of coffee was devastating. That one flyer probably sunk Amy's campaign, and I don't know that because, and this is why. And again, you're listening to the Glen Biegel Show 24 minutes before the hour, KOAN, KVNT. And it's because of this reason. Because if you are going to treat somebody who a lot of people in this town know, I mean, he got 7,000 votes, but I mean, if you claim such an awful thing about Dan Coffey, he owns the Aces. He's a multimillionaire. He's a man about town. You just don't do that and then expect that things are going to go well. I mean, that's it's a tough nut to crack. It's basically what it was. And it was terrible messaging. It was poorly done. And then people are on my Facebook page today complaining that Dan Coffey didn't endorse Amy Demboski. Dan Coffey comes back and says, what do you mean? She slandered me several times. Why would I endorse her? What are you guys talking about? And that's my question to people too. What are you talking about? If Dan Coffey had endorsed her, media would have said, so Amy, somebody who you said is a criminal, trashing Dan Coffey once again, harming him once again. You say he's a criminal, now he's endorsing you. Why do you want his endorsement? Don't you think that's what the questions would have been? It was so foolish. It was so wrong. It was so painful. And I sat here that day and I was just stunned. I was shocked. I was saddened. I was sickened. That was just the wrongest thing to do. Look, Matt Larkin, in my mind, was the only thing that could have saved Amy Demboski. I think she's a fine candidate. I think she's a wonderful woman. I think she has been a fantastic assembly member, the best one I've ever seen. And I just want people to know that I hope that there's a way that Amy Demboski does not get saddled with a campaign that lost to Ethan Berkowitz, an A left-wing player with an A team, the best in the business on the left. He had all of Begich's staff. He had all of Begich's talking people. He had all of Begich's people in the media. They knew exactly how to run this campaign. And that's very tough for us to beat, especially if we make mistakes. Lots of people on the phones here. You're listening to the Glen Biegel Show, KOAN and KVNT. Let me go to Greg. Greg, welcome to the Glen Biegel Show. Thanks for calling.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Glenn. By the way, happy birthday. How's it feel to be 21?
I don't want to be 21 anymore. I have so many wonderful things that go on in my life right now that I would never do it over, and I would never go back.
Well, Bonnie's birthday's coming up, and she's going to be 21, I understand. So you can ask her how that feels. But anyway, hey, no, the points you make are absolutely valid points. I'd like to make three real quick here.
Okay.
First of all, this election served to out some people that otherwise might have had some conservative credentials, perhaps. Yep. There's a long list. I'll just name a few, like Mystrom and McGuire, Landfield, Steerin, Halcrow. You can go down the list. Mm-hmm. And this kind of served to really show where they're coming from. Number two, and I was talking to a morning talk show host this morning about this, the vandalism that I saw.
I am so mad about this, Greg. I am so glad you brought this up. I want people strung up. I want their pictures on the front of the newspaper. I want them to be publicly shamed. I want to see them repay every single dime. I want their First Amendment rights stripped from them. They make me sick. They make me mad. I want them charged. I want them fined. I want them jailed.
Right. And being out on the corner waving signs, let me tell you something. We see the one finger salute coming from the left very often. We see the signs. I've seen several of Amy's signs, being vandalized and so forth. But guess what? That does not come from the right. Everybody I've talked to, I've asked, I said, if you drive by a group of people supporting the opposition as a conservative, do you give them the one finger salute or make, grimacing type faces? And, we don't. We just don't do that, Glenn. It comes from the left. The vandalism, the vitriol, that all comes to the left. Now, the last point I'd like to make, because I know you got lots of calls, is can you help tell us, the average Joe out here, what practical measures we can start to put into place, already should have done, but hey, that's 2020, to try to thwart this big spending agenda that Obama, Begich, Berkowitz has. And
well, the only thing that's going to do it is we have to win another assembly seat, and that is going to be a monumental effort, Greg. A great point and a great question.
All right. Thanks for taking my call. We got to get to work on that.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Greg. You're listening to the Glen Biegel Show, KOAN and KVNT, 569-1080. Joe, welcome.
Glen, Legal Eagle Beagle. How you doing, my buddy?
I'm doing fine. I honestly thought this was going to be a really tough election, Joe, and as it turns out, it was exactly that.
Well, this is the deal. I voted for Dan Coffey. I actually wanted Hal Crow, but he wasn't polling well, so I voted for Dan Coffey.
Okay.
And I am a fiscal conservative. I'm a non-religious person. And after I heard people like Jerry Prevost and the Hurricane Bernadette Wilson,
right,
just going over the Honorable Ethan Berkowitz over and over and over again, I just said to hell with it. I went down to Campbell Elementary yesterday morning and I voted for Ethan Berkowitz. It was the easiest vote I ever voted. And the people that were coming in, nobody was talking like we usually do at the school. People were coming in with their head down and they were almost like an angry look on their face, and they went and got their ballot and they went in and shoved it in the black box and just walked out, stomped out. Now, Amy could have, you don't think Prevost and Bernadette didn't call and say, hey, well, this is what we're going to do, converse with Amy. I know they did. I know they had their little communication.
Hold on. I want to understand this. I want to understand your point here. So
I know
Amy Demboski
gave him the go-ahead.
Gave who the go-ahead?
Jerry Prevost.
No, well, Jerry Prevost actually said it in a sermon on Wilson. Sunday and he had been listening to the Bernadette and Berkowitz show when Berkowitz said that he would marry his own son in order to give him benefits that accrue to married people. Yeah, so Prevost made the point in a Sunday sermon, and then Casey Reynolds, who is going out with somebody who's on the Berkowitz staff, he actually came up to Amy on his program and said, "Do you think that Berkowitz supports incest?" Which he literally said that he did.
See,
none of this matters, by the way. It doesn't make any difference because what you got out of it was an impression. Well, no, it's not sick because he's not talking about a sexual relationship. He's talking about a relationship to accrue the benefits of marriage, which are, property, taxes. I don't know exactly all the different things he thinks.
The Republican Party in Alaska, anyway, and also in the lower 48, is not the party of Ronald Reagan anymore. Ronald Reagan did not have the religious kink. Mm-hmm. He was just angry that government was getting too involved with people's lives, and he won the so-called Reagan Democrats.
That's right.
And he won every state. I voted for him in his second run, and he won every state except for one.
Every single state except one. That's right. It was the biggest landslide, except Minnesota was the only state he lost.
Now, the Republican Party we have now turned dirty, and it's got people voting that have a religious kink, and they want they feel so insecure
Joe,
if everybody's not on board.
Right, exactly. I think you're right. There's a lot of people.
You're a religious person.
Yes.
It hurts them.
There's a lot of people out there who they have their tribe, and their tribe is religiously based, and that's how they think everybody should vote. Well, and what they should learn from this, Joe, and they should learn from you, there is not a majority of people who believe that. In fact, it is a very negative aspect of campaigning. People should not make that point other than for their friends who might say, okay, well, yeah, I think I want marriage to be treated this way or that way. Now, I do have this challenge for you, Joe, before I let you go.
Sure.
You break it, you bought it. Independent Joe, you will no longer be an independent. You'll be a liberal if Ethan Berkowitz raises our taxes. You break it, you bought it.
He can't raise our taxes.
Yes, he can.
No, he can't.
The assembly
because he won't get elected again to a second term.
No. He can still raise taxes.
Begich didn't raise our taxes in his first term.
Begich raised our taxes. Yes, he did 50%.
The second term.
No, both in the first term and the second term. He raised Musa and Misa. Hold on. He raised Musa and Misa taxes, which were tens of millions of dollars. He raided lots of the reserve funds in his first term, and he did raise taxes. You want me to prove it to you, Joe? And then you'll believe me?
Not in his first term.
In his first term, he raised taxes. You want me to prove it to you?
Not a penny.
Okay, I will prove it to you.
Well, you work on that.
Okay, I will.
You better get, and
he raised taxes 8.5% per year, every year during the time that he was in office, and he still got reelected.
Okay, Glenn, and somebody's paying $1,200 for a one-bedroom apartment, they're going to go knocking on their property tax, the property taxes go up and their rent goes up. They're going to knock on the door of the mayor's office and say, how come my rent went up to $1,400? It's not going to happen. There's a housing crisis here in Anchorage, and there's no way that property taxes are going to be raised because it's hurting people right now.
All right, Joe, you broke it, you bought it. When he does, you will have to suffer the consequences.
Great
all right?
show, baby.
All right. Richard, Matt Johnson, both on hold here. I'm going to get to you guys here in just a little while. We're talking about the triage here on the Glen Biegel program. 569-1080. Give me a call. Stay tuned. Eleven minutes before the hour, the Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN and KVNT. I'd love to hear from you. 569-1080, 357-5868. The post-op, the triage, what happened in this election, why. What do you think of it? Let me tell you about the best roofing company in the state of Alaska, and frankly, one of the best companies in the state of Alaska. Better Business Bureau Business of the Year for all companies in the entire state of Alaska for 2010. How does a roofing company accomplish that? Low prices, fantastic service, fast and efficient. Every single customer is the most important. There's no job they can't handle. 345-5555, please. Give them a chance at your business, and you will be working with the best in the business. When you think roofing, think Earhart, E-A-R-H-A-R-T. Back to the phones here to Richard and to Matt. Richard, welcome to the Glen Biegel Show. Thanks for holding.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
It's time now to gather our forces and look to the assembly.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, if you critically read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, we can beat them hands down.
Well, but Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals are pretty effective. That's why they use them, because it's so hard for us.
That's exactly why they use them, and therefore,
if we know them,
the book's out there.
Yep.
Anybody can go to the internet and get it. It's for free. You can read it and begin. We need to read it and understand it and begin to apply the rules, because one of the primary things that I caught out of that book was every time the system creates some sort of monster, overwhelm it.
Yeah. Well, Richard, it's fantastic advice. First of all, the focus on the assembly is exactly what needs to happen, and good candidates need to be found. They need to be vetted, and we need to make sure that they're ready to run for office with a good campaign organization and staff around them. Or we don't need to, but they need to. Somebody needs to find them. Well, we don't have that kind of power.
It's up to us, the individual, to begin that process now.
Great suggestion, and you're very right. They have been using Saul Alinsky for a long period of time. People should pick up the book. It's a very short book, and
it's not that long of a read, but it's very
powerful.
If you read it, it's kind of like you watch the movie that's been happening right in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely right. Hey, Richard, I really appreciate the call. Thank you, sir. Let me go to Matt Johnson. I'm sure Matt is one of the most heartbroken people in the state of Alaska right now. And Matt, welcome to the program, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Hey, Glenn, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm a little down. I'm trying to understand what happened. An 18-point loss to somebody who is such a well-known leftist. He's such a baggage 2.0. He danced in the streets when Obama won, and we couldn't beat him. And it really tears me apart.
Yes, and I think that's a tragedy. And, I have to admit I didn't see this coming, and which is, which is my fault.
Well, tell me what your position was in the campaign when you started getting involved, and then give us a few of your insights as to maybe what you've learned through the process. By the way, Matt and I have known each other for years. We worked closely together on the Joe Miller campaign. I worked hundreds of hours to try and help Joe and figure out what to do. I'm very dedicated. I put my money where my mouth is. I spend my time where I think the most conservative candidate is. And you do too. So this is not about people doing the wrong thing for the wrong reason. These are people doing the right thing for the right reason, but it's just very, very difficult, Matt. That's what we find.
No, I agree. But the one thing one of the things I wanted to raise was you were asking the question, why should Dan Coffey endorse Amy after she sent out that
Could he
bill?
have endorsed her? Let's start with that question first. Could he have endorsed her without subjecting himself to further scrutiny and abuse by the media?
Should he have endorsed? Of course he should have. He promised on multiple occasions, including the day before Election Day, I believe, on KENI, that he would support the Republican who won, no matter who it was. And to me, this is a point of integrity. And that's why Dan Coffey should have done it no matter what. But having said that, the mailer that was sent out was relatively benign, on campaign standards. There was a one-point summary that he took offense at. It was essentially a summary from something he put on his own website. So, whatever you make of it, maybe it was bad strategy. I'll take credit for that if that's the case. But I think the larger issue here, there are 2 points I'd like to make about the campaign.
Okay.
One, this really did take on a flavor of something very much like the Miller 2010 race.
Yes.
And the media and our opponents tried to highlight the fact that I was involved, that Joe had endorsed, that Jerry Prevost was supporting her, that Jim Minery was supporting her, and other prominent conservatives, what I would call full-org conservatives.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. No, I mean, the media was not passive in this, and they knew what they were doing.
No, they were very active.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it. And they knew that this was a very tenuous organization, that the conservatives trying to work together were dependent on each group sort of having their own say. And as long as, the Christian flavor of the campaign that they wanted to paint wasn't too big of a deal, then it wouldn't frighten away people like Joe and people like Jeff Landfield and a bunch of other people who simply despise this idea that Christianity is a central aspect of our country. But they certainly don't like it involved in campaigns. They get the ickies, they get the willies whenever that kind of thing happens.
Well, I understand that perspective, and I got to tell you, the first thing I was going to say was, this comes back to the historic divide between the left-leaning Republicans, what we call moderates or rhinos or whatever you want to call them, and the more traditional conservatives that really were the Reagan conservatives. This is where Joe is 100% wrong. It was the moral majority and Jerry Falwell and other groups like his that propelled Reagan to power.
But here's the thing, Matt. It's 35 years later, and our schools have been active, and our televisions have been active trying to convince people that marriage is not marriage, that it's about a sequence and a series of benefits that the government grants to people, and that it has nothing to do with the contingents of society or tying a man to his children in a permanent way. It has nothing to do with permanence or societal needs, right? We need marriage. We need marriage. We need people to be married. We need women to be married. We need men to be married. We need children to have parents, okay? That's the societal need. And it's become something totally different. So we're 35 years down the left-wing indoctrination by schools, which makes this argument much, much more difficult for us to make in public, Matt.
I was not making an argument. I was correcting a rewriting of history.
I see. About the Reagan conservatives. That you think
that was the Reagan conservative coalition.
Well, look, the reason why Reagan got elected with such a landslide is because Jimmy Carter was an absolutely disastrous president, and our country needed Reagan, and people all recognize that, but that Democrats were still largely normal voting average Americans. They weren't so ideologically bent as people like Ethan Berkowitz is.
I concur wholeheartedly.
Hey,
with that.
Matt, I want to get your second thought on this. I know that, and it's such an important conversation for us to have. Matt Johnson was a big part of Amy Domboski's campaign. We're talking about triage. We're talking about what happened and maybe a little bit of the future. Love to hear from you as well. 569-1080, 357-5868. Can you hold over the end of the hour break? Matt? Okay, yeah. Hold on. Matt will be with us at the end of the hour. Karen, you hold on too. Stay tuned. Oh, I Need a Hero. That's really what this song's about. This is a Skillet song that you're listening to here on the Glen Biegel Show. And Bonnie and I had we're going to have a very similar experience. You're listening to Glen Biegel here on KOAN and KVNT. So when I was younger, I would swim, and I could eat whatever I wanted. I ate probably 10,000 calories a day. And just a ridiculous amount of food. I mean, it truly was obscene. So I went swimming today, and I swam a whole mile, which is not all that far, but it's enough to make a difference, enough to make you feel it.
Today you did that.
Yeah. So
Wow.
For lunch, I went and I had 2.5 full meals. And that's what I did. And I wasn't thinking that it had anything to do with the election, but now I'm kind of questioning myself. But you're doing something similar to this.
Yes, I was just texting my parents saying, can I get some comfort food tonight? How about some KFC?
Now, what kind of chicken are you going to get? Let's bring Matt on here. We got to find out what kind of comfort food he likes here. Matt Johnson's on with us as well. Matt, Bonnie's here is going to tell us whether it's the regular chicken or the crispy chicken.
Crispy chicken's too much trouble. I like original. It's just too harsh.
Matt, are you in with her? Is that the kind of comfort food you deal with too, or what?
Well, I just got through eating some boiled asparagus. So
see, asparagus with a bunch of cheese melted all over it would be another comfort food.
Okay. All right. Now, was yours healthy, Matt, or was yours the cheese variety that Bonnie's talking about?
No, it was just plain. That's the way I like it.
All right. Well, I don't know that qualifies as comfort food, but look, to each their own. That's basically what we're kind of talking about. You wanted to make a second point. I want to bring Karen into the conversation as well. Can I bring Karen in, Matt, and have her ask a question, and we'll talk about what she says too?
Go ahead.
All right. Appreciate that. So you're listening to the Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN and KVNT. Karen, you're on with Matt Johnson, Glen Biegel here. Bonnie Cameron on the other side of the glass. Welcome.
Thank you. And I just want to say, both my husband and I both really trust and respect Matt. I mean, there's just not a higher quality person out there that
He's
would
a
help
great
in a
man.
campaign.
He sacrifices for the things he believes in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And one thing that Matt brought up on the Joe Miller show is, and this is really bothering me, that KTVA yesterday came out and said that Senator Dan Sullivan supported Berkowitz. Now, if I was a sitting senator and I found out about that, I would make a loud noise about it. I would call out KTVA and let them know in no uncertain terms that that is not acceptable to misalign my name like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a big deal because a lot of people now trust and believe in Senator Sullivan as the most conservative person we've ever elected. And if it were true, which it's not true, by the way, KTVA, I don't know if you're listening. I don't even know if you care, frankly, whether or not you're telling people, giving people accurate information. Senator Sullivan did not endorse. He would not endorse Ethan Berkowitz. There's nothing about Ethan Berkowitz that he agrees with him on. He actually endorsed Amy Dembosky. And so it was untrue. Well, I wonder if that affected a lot of people's votes because it's just little things like that, by the way, Matt Johnson and Karen, that do make people think, you know what, if Senator Sullivan, and then it'll be suppressed, it'll go right into the subconscious, people will make their decision, and then they won't even know why.
Well, it doesn't help Dan Sullivan now either, does it?
Well, no, this is on KTVA. It's not on Dan Sullivan at all.
But I know, but if I was a sitting senator and somebody brought that to my attention, I certainly would not just let it
Karen,
go
let
by.
me explain to you how this works. You do not call out the media. You just don't.
Yes, you do.
You correct
I don't have
things.
a problem with that.
Well, you're not a senator, and you got to realize the media can print good things, bad things, and different things, and they can print about your $7 fishing license 39 days in a row on the front page. They can do whatever they want.
I would be very surprised if there was not a private conversation with the TV station.
Yes, and that's the kind of conversation you would have, Karen, not out in public, not calling out KTVA in public.
Yeah, and I understand your strategy about that, but me, I really don't care. Everybody that knows me knows I don't care.
I know.
I stand on the truth, and I will call it out, and I don't care what.
Well, Karen, you did it here, and that's, it's important that people realize when they hear things from the media, they always need to be thinking, wait a minute, they could have this wrong. This sounds a little too good to be true for Ethan Berkowitz's side, and it turns out it was completely false.
I'd like to bring up another point while Matt's on the line.
Sure.
I did not realize this or know that Coffey promised that he would support, the top person in the election back in April, and of course that was Amy on the conservative side. I didn't know that, but doesn't that ring a bell since he was the one pushed by ARP? This sounds just like Murkowski back in 2010. The ARP finds a very liberal so-called Republican. Coffee was a Democrat up until a couple months before the election. This is who the ARP are. They push these liberal candidates down people's throats, and when people say we don't want them, then they go and they support the liberal candidate instead of the conservative candidate.
You think the ARP supported Berkowitz?
They said they supported Amy, but I didn't see a whole lot coming out from them in support of Amy. Some financial funds.
Well, I'm not sure that they have a lot of finance, to be quite honest with you. The federal candidates have plenty of money, but I don't think the state party really has much money at all. Hey, I appreciate the call, Karen.
Thank you.
Just for the record, Glenn, the Republican Party did give the maximum amount they could.
Okay.
Much of it didn't come from the central party, but it came from the districts and the Women's Republican Club and others. But it's an aggregate, and the Republican Party did give the maximum amount they could to Amy. So,
Matt, I want to continue this thread, by the way, because I think this is a turning point, and I want people to recognize it for what it is. And it's very important for people to see. It's not just a passing notation on this election. The ARP supported and endorsed and got trounced in the primary. And then they came around and supported the true conservative when this is one of the first times that this has happened. It almost never happens. And I want to cover this with you when we come back, Matt, because I think this speaks a lot to something that's changing in a very positive way about who's really in charge. Are conservatives really in charge, or do they just have to accept whoever the ARP establishment wants as the candidate for the general election? Can you stay on with me one more segment, Matt?
I'll do it.
All right, I appreciate that. Love to hear from you. 569-1080, 357-5868. It's triage day. We're trying to figure out what the electorate looks like, what it means. There are many more things. I got a great question, by the way, from somebody. Can the assembly actually stop Ethan Berkowitz? And I do have an answer for that. We'll cover that as well. 12 minutes after the hour, the Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN and KBNT. Give us a call, 569-1080. Wait, Ingrid's brutal. Have you ever dealt with her? No? Man, she's
She
just
seems
like
perfectly nice to me.
perfectly nice. She's like the contract Nazi. She's on top of everything. Every single office out there that's properly run has somebody like Ingrid who makes sure everything runs properly. I mean, that's just the way things work. You're listening to the Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN and KVNT. Lots to talk about. Love to hear from you. 569-1080, 357-5868. Matt Johnson, who helped with the Amy Demboski campaign, is with us. And there is somebody who asked me a question as to whether or not the Assembly can hold a newly minted Ethan Berkowitz mayor who will take over on July 1st, whether they can hold him in check. And I said, not for the first year, but thereafter, yes, they could. But it would take turning over a liberal seat. Your thoughts, Matt?
Oh, my thoughts. No, I don't think they are going to be able to hold Berkowitz in check. I think this is a very tenuous situation for those who care about the free market, for those who care about lower taxes, less regulation, and a good economic climate. I think this is it's going to be a pretty rough 3 years, I think, unless we get a stellar election next year.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, that is going to take, and it's going to take everybody working together, finding good candidates and properly, very carefully run campaigns. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things that have to go right. But if we do something like that, I think it could turn out well, and it's very important that gets worked on right away. Can I take a call here from Steve?
Go ahead.
Steve, welcome. You're on with Matt Johnson, Glen Biegel, Bonnie Cameron, of course, on the other side of the glass. Welcome.
Yeah, how you guys doing? Glenn, I haven't talked to you in a long time. I used to call when you were in the morning.
Well, I'm glad you found me again.
Took me a while to find you.
All right.
Anyway.
Tell your friends, by the way. I'm telling people that the reason why we lost this election is because not enough people listen to me and too many people listen to the fake Stirin, who endorsed Emperor Palpatine for mayor.
Well, it's entirely possible. I think one of the problems, at least, and I know that you probably have a different view of it, but I didn't really consider Sullivan a very good mayor. He caused a lot of problems for a lot of people, and he endorsed coffee, and coffee went down in flames, and then he endorsed Amy, and I think that might have bit her. Sullivan did not make a lot of people happy. He made a lot of weird decisions. I think he's a more political base than he is a conservative. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Well, I don't know. He won with fairly large majorities, and he ran good, solid, clean campaigns. We haven't had anybody since Fink as conservative as Mayor Sullivan, and given the fact that he was handed horrible contracts by Senator Begich, then Mayor Begich, I'd say he did a pretty good job. I mean that's the view of most people I talk to. So what are you talking about problems though that he caused?
Well, there was a lot of labor disputes going on with him. He took some pretty hard lines, and I understand that in some of it he probably had to.
Well, look, I thank him for for having labor disputes. Yeah,
one of the ways he kept the budget is he didn't fill positions because he did that in my department. And
that's right. You work for water, wastewater, or something. Absolutely. Is that right? Yeah. And you guys are not the highly paid. I mean, Mayor Sullivan was on yesterday. He said our fire department is the highest paid fire department in the nation, and that the police is in the top 10.
Yeah, that's probably true. I know that we're not.
But that's not true for a wastewater. And you guys actually make money. You got a great, well-run facility, and so I've got no issue with you. But you're right. He did hold down costs by not filling positions, but he wasn't left with much to do because Begich had written these contracts with these huge raises, at least for some of the unions.
No, I agree with that. Yeah. I think he did that, but Mark Begich also rewrit MUSA so that the water utility paid a tremendous amount more money.
Remember, Joe called me up. Joe called me up last hour and challenged me to prove that Mark Begich had raised taxes in his first term, and I immediately said MUSA and MISA. He took those out of the tax cap and immediately raised the prices on those by tens of millions of dollars. Of course, he raised taxes on everybody.
Right, and one of the things that Dan Sullivan did, instead of reversing that, was to take the power of the water utility away from itself to govern itself so that the infrastructure could be held better, and took the power and put it back in his own lap so he could take money out of it. He did not. That's not a conservative move. He centralized the power of the mayor's office to a much greater degree than anybody else.
Is that going to hurt us with Berkowitz?
Well, I mean, he set it up that way, and that's the problem.
Now, did that result in because I think Musa and Misa were taxes basically paid back to the city in order to
that's the way it's written, but I don't agree with it. I don't think that the ratepayers should be forced to fund general government because they happen to operate on some of the roads and stuff. I just completely disagree with it. I think the ratepayers should pay for the services that they get.
So you think, though, that Mayor Sullivan was no help to Amy? That's your basic,
no,
and that may very well be. I don't actually know. You know, on a mayor going out is not necessarily the greatest of endorsements. I was sad to see, and Coffey forced him to this position because they were kind of friends, into endorsing him very early before the race had sort of firmed up. Anyway, some great points there. I appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for coming back.
You bet. Bye.
All right, thanks so much. Matt, one of the most important aspects of this, and I appreciate you staying on with me all this time, is I really think that the power has now shifted, that the number of people who are solidly in the, quote, establishment is so few, maybe 15% of the electorate versus the true conservative wing, the true conservative percentage of voters, which is around 20 to 25%, who now are actually working together. The conservative wing is working together much better than the establishment wing.
I would tend to agree with that. There are still issues, I mean, and I think it was highlighted by the fact that, you have the Coffey factor, you have the Andrew Halcrow factor, obviously with my history, maybe this is looms larger in my eye, but for both of them to promise to endorse and support the Republican who won.
Even Halcrow agreed to support the Republican?
Yes, he did. He did. I don't know if there were, I can't say for sure if there were public pronouncements to that effect, but I know privately on multiple occasions.
Well, there's no way he could have endorsed. Look, the LGBT stuff is totally front and center. It's a moral issue for him to overturn traditional marriage. Right. So there was no way he was going to endorse Amy. There's no way. And he ended up endorsing Berkowitz. Right,
but he did make that promise. And here's the deal. It highlights, and that was one point I was going to make. So you have this section of people who are really, in many ways, unscrupulous. They're just political players, and you can't count on them to really be part of the team. But the other thing that you touched on earlier was, I'm disturbed. I think there has been a cultural shift.
Yes.
This is not the party of Reagan. This is not the nation of Ronald Reagan.
I think that's so true. And let me give people a little bit of foundation here. I'm talking here with Matt Johnson, and I've gotten this very strong sense from a lot of people that if any kind of Christian or religious taint accrues to them at all, immediately, I would say 25% of the electorate will flee. Will say, there's no way you're going to get my vote. I don't even care what you're for. I don't care what you're against. I don't care what the other guy's for and what the other guy's against. I mean, Jeff Lanfield, who I put in this category, no, Jeff, I'm not saying that you hate every Christian person. I'm saying that you do not like religion, that you do not like it as part of any kind of governance. You don't like it as a guiding force for any of the candidates, and that if there's any taint of religion, you immediately flee. But I sense that too, and this is far different than the way that it was before, Matt.
I concur with that, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about our public education system. Yep. We have one segment of the population that was part of the Reagan coalition. They're dying off. The new people that are coming in have a very different view of the world, and to me, I hate to say it this way, but it really is a kind of anti-religious bigotry.
Mm-hmm. They are not going to mind. And let me clarify this for people so they don't think that this is hyperbole, because I want this to be clear. Berkowitz literally said in his campaign that if you do not agree that you should have to participate in a gay wedding, which could be completely against your religion, for 2,000 years, could have been completely against your religious values. And if you're a Jew for the last 6,000 or 7,000 years, could be against your religious values. That the government, on threat of taking away your business and your livelihood, can force you against your will to participate in that ceremony, and that's okay. That's what religious bigotry we're talking about here. Well-established principles are no longer allowed in the public square. That's exactly what Berkowitz said. And a lot of people say, hey, that's just fine. I don't think you should have a First Amendment right to practice your religion. If you get into the marketplace, you Christians, then you are going to have to adhere to what I think the government wants you to do.
Right. These younger people have been inculcated with a kind of secular fundamentalism that is not just intolerant of religion. It's now to the point where they're hostile.
Yeah, I agree. The hostility toward religion, very clear in this election.
Our founders, all the way through the Reagan era and into the 90s.
Matt, let me ask you a very specific question. How many kids, how many people under 30 do you think have any idea how religious our founding fathers were and how religious they knew that our country had to be?
I would be surprised if it was 10%.
I would be surprised if it's 10%. And I will tell you this, even worse, how many people care whether or not our founding fathers were religious and whether or not they thought that our country had to be religious in order to be free?
I think this generation does care. They're invested in a particular secular view of the world. And if that's true, they don't even want to know.
Yeah.
And they won't hear it.
Well, Matt, it's so important for us to answer this. How is it that we work together? Because I don't know whether for Jeff Landfield, he literally endorsed the other side. He endorsed Berkowitz. So let's give up on him. But is there a way for people to work together who do want limited government but don't really want Christians running things?
Well, I guess, Glenn, there's one thing I'd like to point out, and that is this. I mean, when you can agree with somebody on almost every aspect of economics, at least in theory, you can agree with them on the way the government should function, on the size, the scope, taxation, regulation, all of the rest. But there's one thing that comes in, and that is that this person happens to be a committed Christian, and you won't vote for them just because of that.
That's bigotry.
I want to know who's the bigot.
Yeah, that's bigotry. That's exactly right. It's a great point. Matt Johnson, you're a good man. I'm so sorry that this turned out this way. Thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thank you so much, Glenn.
I appreciate it. Matt Johnson, he helped head up the Demboski campaign. Stay tuned, folks. It's 25 minutes before the hour, the Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN and KVNT. Some lively discussion going out there on Facebook from a post that I put up earlier this morning. Go out to the Glen Biegel Facebook page. It's also been posted on the Glen Biegel Show Facebook page. And it talks about where we are and what we should learn. And these are difficult questions. There's not a lot of clarity on what this all means. I'll just give you a flavor. A movement is about learning, adapting, and growing. Boy, that growing part, by the way. How do conservatives grow their forces? I mean, for years, for decades probably, we've been just thinking about how do we just keep this thing going? How do we keep the wheels on? And that is a real question. How do we grow? We don't have enough people on our side unless we merge together a whole bunch of different groups. Now, I name the groups as libertarians, common sense independents, conservatives, and establishment folks. Those are all limited government people. Ethan Berkowitz is not a limited government person, which is why I suggested that anybody who endorsed him publicly is not going to be called a conservative anymore, because if you broke it, you bought it. Right? Is that fair? Of course that's fair.
Lisa McGuire, the very first one to go.
Yes. Yeah. She obviously should be replaced. But a lot of people came out. A lot of people were exposed in this election. And it was because, and Matt and I covered this just briefly at the end of the last segment, there is now a very, very strong and obvious anti-Christian, anti-religious bent to our election cycles. And it's so clear, it's so obvious that you just can't mistake it. You can't miss it. And that is one of the things which occurred during this election cycle. I think it's one of the things to realize. I give that as one of the things to learn from this election cycle. What do you do about it? I don't really know. I mean, these are much harder questions than one person can work out. I would like to sit down with people who consider themselves to be libertarians, common sense independents, and establishment people, and find out, look, if we're to make a grouping amongst us where we agree to work together to prevent unlimited government people like Berkowitz. Yeah, this is what I mean by this, by the way. And you're listening to Glen Biegel here on KON and KVNT. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to use hyperbole. I'm not trying to give Ethan Berkowitz a position that he doesn't have. You ask him, how do we solve hunger? Government. How do we solve people lacking clothing? Government. How do we solve homelessness? Government. How do we solve people without a job? Government. Dude, every single thing that he believes, there's nothing that he doesn't believe the government can't do better than the private sector. There is no amount of suffering in a person's life that's educational, that changes them. Do you know that the times that I grew the most were the times when I ran out of money? When I had to have ramen for 2.5 weeks straight. Those are the times when my family had $100 left and we had 2 weeks before I got another paycheck. Those were the times. You know what I learned? Get off your butt. You better get a good skill. You've got to go out into the workplace. You've got to get something that the marketplace wants if you want to be able to eat. That is the most important lesson I've ever learned in my life. Out of religious ones. Now, how was I ever going to learn that if Ethan Berkowitz was trying to coddle me and care for me? Government is immoral. It steals from the next generation. And these are just basic things. Now, these are all things that libertarians and common sense independents and conservatives and establishment Republicans believe. All of them. Every one of the things that I just listed, and none of them does Ethan Berkowitz believe. Now, he will lie to you, by the way. He will come out and tell you, oh, no, I believe in all the things that you just said. Okay, well, how about we have a law which says that we're only going to have 3 years of welfare? Oh, no. We can't do that. Excuse me? I thought you just said you agreed to. Well, of course I do. I agree with everything you said. But no, we can't pass that law. Oh, look, people who do not have a tie to the truth are not going to tell you the truth. The truth is not the highest good. It's not the most important value. And you just have to realize that going in. Ethan Berkowitz is going to make every excuse why he's got to raise taxes, and he's going to try and hide the taxes by moving them here and moving them there, and he's going to talk about public safety, and he's going to talk about this, and he's going to talk about that, the homeless and whatever. Ethan Berkowitz believes in government as the savior. I believe in society, in culture, in doing good works, in sacrifice, and in the end, in working for a living. That's the savior. If we don't have jobs and we don't have strong families, then nothing else can fix us, right? So anyway, all those things do conservatives agree on, and the mixture of conservatives that I listed, libertarians, common sense independents, anybody who doesn't believe in unlimited government. How do they work together? Let me give you a brief review of how difficult I think this actually is going to be. Couple of polls. New Hampshire, Bush 15. That sounds like coffee. Rubio 12. Where do those votes go? Walker 11. Rand Paul 10. Cruz 6. Question. Are these not the four groups that I just mentioned? They are exactly the four groups that I just mentioned. And you know what? They all have to figure out how to work together. Every single one of them. Every single one of them have to figure out how to work together. How is it going to happen? I have no earthly idea. I don't know. Because the media is going to get involved, right? And they're going to make Amy Demboski, who never claimed to be the most Christian person on the planet, as the certified Christian leader, of the conservative right-wing fanatic movement. That's what the media is going to do. And as such, we're going to drop out a lot of libertarians. A lot of common sense independents are going to go, well, I don't want the conservative Christian leader from, fanatic to be leading our city. Does she disagree with anything other than, does she disagree with anything that our current mayor believes? Anything about governance? Anything about leading the city? Not a thing. Now, was Mayor Dan Sullivan the Christian fanatic leader of the right wing? No, he was a good mayor. He was a wise man. He had a good team around him. He led the city to greatness. We have a fantastic bond rating. We have, facilities that we can afford. We built new roads. I mean, all the good things that he wanted to do, all of the good things that you wanted him to do. So what's the truth? The truth is the media is going to try and break this coalition apart, and there's lots and lots of buttons to push. The only question at the end of the day, though, is do you believe that people need a job and that they need to have difficulties in their life that they have to overcome themselves in order to learn how life is? Oh, it's tough being a conservative. It really is. It's not easy, but it's still good. And there's lots of work to be done. And you're still going to be able to lead your family, and you're still going to be able to live in the greatest country. Is it going to get harder as this anti-religious bent gets stronger? Yeah. But I think that means that it's much more important, by the way, that we all try and figure out, how do we work together? How do we work together? Are there certain things? Are you going to force a religious person to do a satanic ritual? Why not? You're in the marketplace, and the Satan worshipers are entitled to, right? I mean, what's the difference? Literally, what's the difference? I mean, I'm just asking you. And what Ethan Berkowitz would say, oh, you go to the most extreme example. The most extreme examples are happening right now. We're in the midst of it right now. And what Ethan Berkowitz means by that, if I may put words in his mouth, which sometimes we have to do because he's not going to tell us the truth. What he means by that is, as soon as there's a majority of people who think, yes, we should be forcing Christians to work in satanic rituals, then that will become his position. It's true. Well, what a fascinating day. What a great day. We live in a wonderful city. We have an assembly to try and win back. And that is going to be a difficult task. It's going to require a lot of humility, and it's going to require a lot of working together. And I don't know if we have it in ourselves. I think we do, though. We have been guided by greatness here for the last 6 years. We continually elect conservatives. I think Sean Parnell would easily have beat Walker had they not come up with this National Guard scandal. Easily would have beat him. And so the media's out there looking for whatever little piece to try and, oh, look, squirrel. Right? That was the thing which distracted the dogs in the movie Up. Squirrel. Oh, what? Oh, stop paying attention to what's really going on, and let's start looking at what the media wants us to look at. It is 15 minutes before the hour. Many important things yet to discuss. We'll move on to marijuana, something about the UA system, University of Alaska, and budget changes. Oh, they are coming. I call this the tripwire, and that's what this is. The most wasteful, other than the UN, the most wasteful system that the Western world has ever devised, is the University of Alaska education system. I estimated that the amount of subsidy per full-time equivalent student is $50,000 per student per year. We could send them to Harvard and we'd save money. I mean, that's how wasteful the University of Alaska system is. It's the tripwire. I'll talk about that. Love to hear from you as well. 569-1080, 357-5868. The Glen Biegel Show here on KOAN and KVNT. And we will continue on. Stay tuned.
'Cause I'm gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear.
If you wanted to design like the most wasteful possible state bureaucracy, I just don't think that you could have done any better than the state of Alaska. I mean, we spend almost twice as much per capita as the next most expensive state. Something like $14,000 for every man, woman, and child. And that ranges up to $17,000 or $18,000 depending on how big the capital budget is. Can you imagine that? $17,000 or $18,000. 10 minutes before the hour here, the Glen Biegel Show on KOAN and KVNT. Country Financial is there to make sure that your family has financial strength. Protect your auto, your home, your life, an A+ superior rating from AM Best. And they do have the financial strength to deliver on their obligations to their customers. Country Financial, no better place to go. And you're also going to be dealing with somebody local who's going to sit right across the table from you. Took me about 2 hours for them to walk me through my financial plans, my financial responsibilities. And it was a wonderful experience. I suggest it for everybody. You won't know the questions, and the answer is what are your priorities is what it comes down to. And then what are your dreams? How do you want to accomplish them? What will that take? They're great at walking you through it. Took 2 hours for me to do it. Country Financial, 13 local locations, all for you. 866-COUNTRY. That is their number. I hope you give them a call. And country is spelled
COUNTRY.
The state of Alaska is a bit of a shocker, and we're coming to the end of a long and kind of crazy road. Are we doing wings, by the way? We're going to do Wing Wednesday? We should have done wings all throughout the show, but I get so, even the favorite thing that I have in life, which is eating wings, my true comfort food, I sometimes forget. Well, how about we will give away wings? We're going to give away a $20 gift certificate to Wings and Things.
But only if you are an Amy Demboski supporter. No, I'm joking.
Oh, man. How about don't want to know who you voted for and would love for you to call. Just give us a call right now. We'll give away to caller number 3. If you want a $20 gift certificate to Wings and Things, the best wings on planet Earth. And I highly recommend hot wings, extra saucy. You get a plate of 20 of them. You won't be able to eat more than 10, but still, you will have a wonderful experience over at Wings and Things. Of course, they also have fantastic sandwiches, and you can get the hot sauce put on the sandwiches too. So 569-1080, 569-1080. Give us a call right now. Caller number 3, 357-5868. Yes, if you're in the Valley, of course, you can participate too. You just got to come into town. They're on the corner of 36th and Arctic in the mall there. And what a joy. I want to share one of my greatest joys and one of the supporters of this program, Wings and Things. And if you haven't gone there, you won't know because your mouth won't be watering. I had comfort food today, by the way. I hope that it wasn't due to the fact that the election did not go the way that I wanted it to. But I do wonder whether it was partly that. Anyway, all right. It looks like we've got plenty of calls rolling in. Thanks, everybody, for participating. And if you didn't win, I think I'm going to be down there. Oh, no, I'll be down there next week. So you're going to have to wait till next week if you want to see me down at Wings and Things. One of my favorite places. Participate with me on Facebook. I will make a post every morning. This morning, it was about our movement. And it is a ragtag band of loosely organized and very ill-fitted rebels, right? You've got the ultra-powerful left. They agree on everything. They're paid by the government. They have monopolies from one end to the other, and they vote their paycheck. That's power. Right? That maximizes their power. So the media is always looking at ways to sort of pull us apart. But I'm very dedicated to this idea of finding out how do libertarians and conservatives who agree on a lot of things, but we always get hung up on the things that we don't agree on. And I've got an idea that I'm going to try and float. I'm going to see whether or not I'm going to bring together a whole group of people and see whether or not I can get them to set aside their differences, help me work through. How do we work together? I don't know. Even establishment folks. How does an establishment folk and a libertarian who will sit there and on maybe they disagree on 30%, maybe 40% of things, but they still agree not on 10% of things, like, with the left. I mean, you think Jeff Landfield is going to end up agreeing with what Ethan Berkowitz does as mayor? I doubt it. I don't think so. That he was distracted by this idea that somehow Jerry Prevost was going to be running and Jerry Prevost's not a bad guy, by the way, but I'm just saying this is the thought process that goes through people's minds. It's the craziest thing, that he's going to be running the mayor's office. Amy Demboski never claimed to be this great Christian leader, and that she was going to, implement religious rule in Anchorage, but that's how she was painted, right? That's how she was painted, and it worked. It was very effective. What a powerful thing it is to have the media on your side. Let me bring you up to date on a couple of other things going on. The UA system is looking at cutting hundreds of positions all across the state. That's the University of Alaska system. And that was the tripwire for me. I knew that our budget situation was going to be dealt with in a very serious way once they started dealing with the University of Alaska system, because it means that they've started to peel back the covers. Nobody ever asked the question, I'm sorry, what is the subsidy per child that we're giving to the University of Alaska system? Did you say $50,000 per child? You think that's reasonable? Is that? Then they can figure out, okay, well, that's not reasonable. We're going to have to change the way you guys do business. So they've started doing that. I think they cut the 2% of graduating students were in 46 different degree programs. Did you hear what I just said? 46 different degree programs. They maintain the entire structure of the degree program and all the different liberal professors who worked for the university system. Who knows how many tens of millions of dollars that costs? And so they're having to cut that 2% of the graduating students and 46 programs. That's where they've started. Now, this is not the end of this, and it's not the end of any of this, by the way. Medicaid will change. Our education system will have to change. I think our education system within 10 years, and you can mark this down if you've never heard this before, I think our education system is dramatically going to change because of technology within 10 years. And that includes here in the state of Alaska. So a lot of these questions, a lot of these discussions will be moot because we simply will not continue to do. We can't afford to continue to do education the way we're doing it. Now, we may be on the forefront or we may be laggards, right? We may be in with Massachusetts and Maryland in bringing in modifications that enhance long-distance education and increase the efficiency and effectiveness of education by having individualized teaching experience and classroom experience. Or more likely, since the education unions run our state, we may be pulling up the rear and trying to figure things out with one of the worst educations, unfortunately, in the country already. Lots of things to look forward to, lots of things to discuss and talk about. As always, you're listening to Alaska's Consistent Conservative. It's my pleasure to be with you each and every day. Make sure to tune in to Tom Anderson. I love saying that name. He gets so excited when he says his own name. Tom Anderson Show, 6 to 9 a.m. Joe Miller's on just before me here on KOAN. Take care, folks. Don't get down. Be positive. We've got a life to live.